So hi everyone and welcome to a new edition of You Are My Borough with myself, Scott Wilson and Dom Shaw, both from the Northern Echo. I wish I could say that this was going to be a thoroughly enjoyable half hour or so of Borough chit-chat. It's going to be Borough chit-chat. Quite how enjoyable it's going to be, I guess we'll leave up to you. We will dive straight into it. We're recording this on, I've got to get the days right here because with bank holidays, you're all over the place. It's Tuesday kind of tea time-ish. Dom, you were at Hillsborough yesterday. 1-0 up, Coventry losing, Bristol City losing, penalty. What can go wrong?
There was a stage in the first half when they got the penalty, and I said, score this, and Borough could be home and hosed. And I was quickly reminded, and I can't believe it slipped my mind at the time, of just how the Boxing Day game against Sheffield Wednesday played out. In some ways, yes, well, I think yesterday was more disappointing, and I think that Sheffield Wednesday home game was the most frustrating game of the season so far. But I think yesterday's was more disappointing. You started last week's video by talking about Borough bingo at Millwall. Well, yeah. they were at it again at Hillsborough, weren't they? Managing to throw away points from a position of power, failing to respond to momentum swings in a game, failing to respond to substitutions in a game. And once again, questions being raised about the mental fragility of the team, the steeliness of the side. If you'd have plonked a neutral with no prior knowledge of the Championship in the ground at Hillsborough in the second half and said, which one of these two teams are right in the mix for the playoffs and which one of these teams is on a woeful run of form and has been called out over the weekend by the manager who was warned there could be in a relegation fight next season. I don't think there's a chance you'd have got it wrong. I think you would have got it wrong. Yeah. You would just never have guessed that there was so much at stake for Borough. That the second half performance, and the goal, even by the standards of this season, was just remarkable, really, for all the wrong reasons.
We'll get to the goal in a second. I think that is the most damning indictment, isn't it? Because, okay, Bristol City and Coventry have both lost. But one's lost to a Plymouth side who we saw the week before at the Riverside have got a bit of fight about them. And it always felt like that might be a tricky game. Luton are arguably the form side in pretty much the whole of the league at the minute. So, you know, while both of those will have been massively disappointing results for those clubs and fans of those clubs, there's a bit of mitigation there. Where do you find it with Borough? Because, you know, we're going to probably wrap this up by talking about Norwich. Well, Norwich at home feels like the most inviting game you could possibly get in the Championship at the minute, probably followed by Sheffield Wednesday. Now, all right away, but I mean, it was all there for Borough, wasn't it? That's the really disappointing thing that, you know, everything was in place for them and they still couldn't get the result that they needed.
Well, prior to the game, Sheffield Wednesday had the worst home record in the division. I think they'd won 5 home games. They hadn't won at home since New Year's Day. Oxford won there a couple of weeks ago. That everything, like you say, was there for them. That's on the back of the roasting Danny Röhl gave them after Friday's game. And we haven't even mentioned the fact the players didn't get paid last month. And there's the one-way owner there and all the fury among the fans there. And when Borough went 1-0 up, it was similar to Blackburn, where the attention of the fans quickly turned on the ownership and Chansiri. And it just felt like the type of atmosphere. Borough had 4,000 away fans there. And it felt like the type of atmosphere where this is all playing into Borough's hands. Coventry are getting beat. Bristol City are getting beat. It was the most glorious opportunity. But how many times this season have we talked about Borough missing opportunities, wasting opportunities? I think that has to go in. I think that has to go in at the top of the list. And there's plenty of competition, isn't there? Watford away, Norwich away, Sheffield Wednesday at home, both the Plymouth away game, and then that one. You just can't believe, given the way the 2 games have played out, the Borough have ended up with 1 point from 6 from their 2 games against Sheffield Wednesday.
This season. Well, that's the indictment, isn't it? And I mean, clearly the penalty is a massive turning point. But listen, anybody can miss a penalty. Conway had scored one under massive pressure the week before. Okay, yeah, you miss a penalty, massive chance gone. it's the second half where it gets away from Borough. And like you say, so many things that we'd seen before. And, we can't ignore it. Kind of the inability of A, the players, and B, Michael Carrick as head coach on the sideline to get a grip of a game that's starting to turn against them. That, for me, has been the biggest problem all season. And I don't think they're any nearer having any kind of a clue about what to do about it.
Well, in his interview with BBC Tees, and there's a fair bit to unpack from that, but in his interview with BBC Tees, Carrick talked again about learning the lessons. We're 44 games into a season. If you haven't learned the lessons by now, let's be honest, you're not going to. Borough are not going to learn the lessons of the costly errors that have made them slip up again and again and again this season. And in the same interview with Tees, if you haven't listened to it yet, it's worth going and digging it out. It's on socials. Mark Drury, understandably and fairly, asked Carrick about the mental strength of this side. The mental, does he still have the belief? Does Carrick still have the belief that Borough are mentally strong enough to deal with the pressure, the high stakes shootout, really, they're in now in the final two games? And Carrick didn't like it, bit back. I think lost his cool, it's fair to say, by Carrick standards, and said, that's a terrible question. Well, it's not a terrible question. It's a perfectly fair and valid question, because it's the same issues costing Borough again and again and again. Carrick doesn't like it when it's suggested that his team have a soft centre or that they're mentally fragile. Well, if those two things are incorrect, what is it? What is the reason for these same issues plaguing Borough again and again and again? And when you put that to Carrick, he says there are lots of reasons, doesn't he? Or it could be many factors. Well, what are they? And why aren't they being ironed out? And back to where we started there, if they haven't been ironed out by now, they're not going to be, are they? Not at this stage of the season.
And I know you referred to it, but I mean, I think if you wanted a moment that just encapsulated lack of taking responsibility, lack of leadership, just a soft centre, it has to be the goal, doesn't it? I mean, in many ways, that is the encapsulation of Borough's season, isn't it? I mean, just what on earth is going on there?
Well, there was that montage that Sky, I think, had put together earlier this season of all Borough's calamitous goals or calamitous moments. Well, add that one to the mix. It reminded me of the one at Preston where it was schoolboy stuff, wasn't it? Schoolboy stuff. Time seemed to freeze. In the moment, you almost had to laugh at disbelief at what you'd seen, and like that happening at any moment in a game at this level of the game, that happening in any moment is hard to believe. But at that moment, in a game that with so much on the line for Borough, and actually, for all the defensive, there's been so many shambolic goals conceded this season. I actually think that's one area where they have tightened up to an extent in recent weeks, and then they go and do that.
In terms of individuals, I mean, any positives to take from it? Any players who you thought were particularly disappointing?
Well, I think the big positive is Mark Travers, which says everything, really, doesn't it? When the goalkeeper is your best player.
There's a definite argument he has been since he arrived.
Yeah, really. He's been a really good January signing, hasn't he? I thought the forward players were disappointing. Hackney, I thought, was really good in the first half. The goal, which is a really good goal and a reminder and a snapshot of what this team should be. And Hackney was central to that. Then he wins the penalty. Conway was a day to forget. Obviously, he misses the sitter in the last minute. Whittaker, another difficult game. Force had a chance late in the first half, but it passed him by, really. But the defence, Rav van den Berg's struggling, isn't he? And you've got George Edmondson and Dale Fry fit now. You've got Darragh Lenihan on the bench as well, but he's not going to play between now and the end of the season. Well, I think if you're going to make any changes to the back line, I think there's a case that it's Van den Berg who comes out rather than Howson. I thought Howson was solid again in the circumstances. But it wasn't about individuals, was it? It was just a collective reminder of why we've talked so much about the lack of game management this season, the naivety. Where's the leaders? Where's the steeliness? Where is it when you need someone to grab a game by the scruff of the neck? And where's Carrick when you need him to make a change, to change the game, swing the game back in Borough's favour? He identifies the issue. So afterwards we asked him what went wrong in the second half. And he said, well, the game got too stretched. Well, why didn't you do anything about it? He said last week when I asked him about his substitutions that the timing is irrelevant and he judges it on what he sees on the pitch. Well, I think it's 3 of the last 5 or 4 of the last 6 games. His first unenforced change has come in the 66th minute. That suggests that that's a formula rather than being instructed by what he sees on the pitch. And Millwall and Bristol City and Sheffield Wednesday, the manner of those games, the way the games played out, again, all tells you that he's not actually reacting to what he's seeing on the pitch. Either that or he doesn't trust the players he's got on the bench. But the likes of Ryan Giles and George Edmondson and Kelechi Iheanacho, these are his signings.
Yeah, and you know, that's basically the point I made after Millwall. Now, to be fair, someone did come on, I think it was on socials, I can't remember who you were, but someone did come on and say, well, what about Engel at Sheff Wed? Which is probably the only time I can remember where Carrick's... But that was, I mean, that was... You know, yeah, Engel at Sheff Wed.
I thought we all agreed not to talk about that ever again.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But, you know, that aside, he just doesn't do it, does he? He doesn't make the kind of game-changing alterations that we see kind of other managers do. And yet, so if we've had Borough Bingo, he is our Borough Video Bingo, because it feels like pretty much since January, really, we've been doing these vids saying Borough are not this, they can't do this, they're rubbish, they can't do this, they're failing on this, blah, blah, blah. And yet, we go into the last 2 games of the season, and if Borough win them both, they're in the playoffs.
If Borough go on to win the playoffs, can we just say, if you look at the small print, there's an asterisk attached to everything you said for the last 3 months. I mean,
it's bonkers, isn't it?
And not just that, I'm going to go further. I think it's Tuesday now. I think next Monday morning, because it's not going to have any impact, Bristol City play on the Monday night. I think next Monday morning, Borough will be in the top 6. I think Borough will beat Norwich on Saturday. I think Coventry will lose at Luton on Saturday. But last week, we made the point, can you trust Borough to go and get a result at Coventry on the last day? I said, I don't think you can. Well, what we saw at Sheffield Wednesday on Monday did nothing to change my mind on that. And I really hope I'm wrong. Obviously, I'd love Borough to get in the top 6 now. We all would. But it's just staggering, really, that they're still in with a shout, isn't it? I think it shows 2 things, really. A, how poor the league is. From 3rd to 4th down, how poor the league is. But really, Borough should be home and dry now. And there should have been for a number of weeks now, like Sunderland have been. When you look at all the missed opportunities, just staggering, really, isn't it?
I think that's why, you know, when we do eventually have the proper debrief and rake over the ashes of the season, if Borough have not got into the playoffs, then given the deficiencies of those around them, that is an even more damning kind of indictment of what's gone wrong. There's still a chance that might not happen, as we keep on saying. Now, you've kind of jumped straight in there and said, I'm pretty confident they'll beat Norwich at the weekend. Everything on paper suggests Middlesbrough should beat Norwich at the Riverside on Saturday. Norwich, season's gone, nothing to play for, on a really bad run. Strong suggestions in the last 24 hours that their managers probably are going to be on the way.
He's gone.
Has he gone?
Yeah, he's gone. Jack Wilson. Well, I thought to him again. No, he's gone.
Well, I've got to leap in here and defend myself. I'm on a day off today, so I've been out cutting the grass this afternoon. That's why I haven't seen that.
That's why you've got that lovely glow on the forehead as well.
That's exactly it. That's exactly okay. So no manager now. Yeah, Jack Wilshere in the void. I mean, and yet, would you like to think you had your mortgage on Borough winning?
Well,
for the record, I think they'll win as well.
I do.
I'm not. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely past the post.
They are bottom of the form table. They've picked up 6 points from the last 10 games. The manager's been sacked. I think they've lost 3 on the bounce. So I put all this on social earlier, and you can only imagine the response that it got. 3-0 to Norwich. They have now to play for, so I expect them to turn it on against us. Or bugger. Nailed on Norwich win then. 3 points to Norwich then, just like Sheff Wed not winning at home since New Year's Day. I think Borough will beat Norwich on Saturday. I do. But that just all adds to the frustration, really. And what was your take? And just before we get back to Norwich and run over that game. What was your take on Carrick's response to the game on Monday? Because he clearly tried to spin it positively with nothing's changed. It's as you were. We still know it's in our hands. I get what he was trying to do, but I thought he did it clumsily with his wording. And despite that, there's no getting away from the fact that it is still a massive opportunity missed, even more so because of what happened elsewhere.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think so. There's a few things there. I think I understand why Carrick wants to accentuate the positive in this, because he's clinging to the prospect that there is still a chance here, and there is, and he's clearly got to keep his players upbeat in that. Now, there are some managers that would do that, but while still subtly saying, look, this just wasn't good enough today, And that's what he could have done, couldn't he? He could have come out and said, look, it's an opportunity missed. We've let ourselves down, but the saving grace is that other results have gone for us. We're still in this. We can still turn it round, but clearly we're going to have to be a damn sight better than we've been today. That's not Carrick's style, is it? There's plenty of managers, previous Borough managers, other managers across the league that would have come out and said exactly that. And I think that's more of what fans want to hear, don't they? They want to know that deep down, Michael Carrick knows that is just not good enough and it's a massive chance missed. And deep down, he will know that. But it's just not in character to kind of do that, is it? He will bend over absolutely backwards to avoid being critical of anyone, certainly as players. And yet, it just feels like, they need to kick up the backside. They need to know, look, you probably got one more chance now. One more performance like that, and it will be over. You can't just sleepwalk through this. And I think that's what fans want from Carrick, but you're not going to get it because it's just not his style.
No, but like you said, that there is a way to do it, isn't there? A balance to be struck. And I think it's fair to say that there's a disconnect, and there has been for a little while. That despite the position Borough are in, it feels like there's a feeling of apathy, really. And again, it has done for a while, because I think of the frustration of what should have been this season. And I just think that doesn't help. Doesn't help. It leads to the suggestions, for all you can see, why Carrick's doing that. I've seen a fair few fans on social media saying it's delusional. Well, I don't think he believes it. It's not delusional because I don't think he believes it, but he leaves himself open to that sort of criticism.
I think it'll be interesting if and when the season is actually over and Borough have failed to go up, what Carrick's debrief is like. Will he actually take a step back and say, do you know what? In the harsh light of day, we need to look at what's gone on here, because this isn't good enough. Clearly his future will be called into question at that point. But will he still continue to go with, well, the lads have given me everything. I can't fault them. There's just been moments that have gone against us. All of this that we keep on hearing. Will he still be saying that if and when it actually is over? Because I can kind of understand at the minute why he doesn't want to go there. But if he's still not going there, if it has actually gone wrong, then I think that is, you just say then, well, that's just someone who is completely burying their head in the sand on this.
And I think, again, an example of going too far the other way, when he was asked about the response to the game at Sheffield Wednesday this week and how you lift the players and will there be, how do you get the players positive again and the feeling positive again? He said, how could you be anything but positive? Well, where do you want us to start?
Yeah.
Michael,
yeah.
Watch the You Are My Borough that will be recorded.
Yeah, exactly.
And that just feels like, where it's too far the other way. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but that just leads itself to, are you out of touch with what fans are saying and thinking?
Yeah.
I know you can't be judged by that. You have to be insular, don't you, when you're a football manager? But still, you get the point.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think, the reaction of the crowd is interesting because, as you say, at the minute, it's apathy rather than anger, isn't it? We haven't really seen Borough fans properly have a go. Now, would they if things went wrong on Saturday? Maybe. But I think it's kind of a strange dynamic because once Steve Gibson kind of let it known that Carrick wasn't going, what was it, either the start of this month or last month, the point when we all knew when everything came to a head. Well, it was pretty obvious then that Carrick was going to be the head coach come what may until the end of the season, and then we'll see what happens in summer. So I think that's lent itself to a strange dynamic as well, where fans have just kind of shuffled off and said, well, this is bitterly disappointing. This isn't good enough. And yet, it's kind of, well, we'll see what happens in the summer then.
Just to wrap up then, here we go again, remaining fixtures, really across the bottom of the scene. We've done this before. Bristol City, Leeds away, Preston home, Coventry, Luton away, Borough home, Millwall, who we've barely discussed, Swansea home, Burnley away. We won't go over it all again, but what's your feel for this weekend?
I think Bristol City will lose at Leeds. I think that Leeds, okay, you can say they've got nothing to play for, but they'll still want to win the title. It's their last home game. Ellen Road, we all saw the scenes outside there yesterday. It'll be absolutely bouncing. I think Leeds will beat Bristol City, but I think Bristol City will beat Preston. So I think Bristol City will pick up 3 more points. Coventry, I'm with you. I don't think they'll be. I can see that being a draw for some. I think Coventry Luton might be a draw, and then obviously we'll get to Borough in a second. Like you say, Millwall are the interesting ones because it feels like they'll beat Swansea at home. Again, the Den will be bouncing, won't it, for that last home game? What mood will Burnley be in on the last day of the season? Guess it might depend if they're still gunning for the title or not. I'll take Millwall to beat Swansea and lose at Burnley, so I've got them getting 3 points as well. Borough, we've said we'll beat Norwich, so that gets them to 3. We're in the scenario where Borough are going to need to draw at Coventry to go into the playoffs with Bristol City, aren't we?
Depending on whether if Coventry lose at Luton.
Yes. If Coventry lose at Luton, yeah.
If Coventry
if Coventry draw this weekend and Borough win, then Coventry have that point advantage.
Borough would need to win, and
Borough would need to win on the last day. Yeah, that's a fair.
That's when that late goal.
Listen, I'm with you. I'm as we sit here now. I don't think Borough get anything at Coventry on the last day. I think that they may be able to get a point. If Borough go there needing to win, I would fear for them because I think that if Coventry score or get on top in that game at all, then Borough needing to win it, I think it becomes really difficult for them. I think they probably do need Coventry to lose that game at Luton. And they might. I mean, I said a draw, but they might because Luton are playing ever so well and are fighting for everything. Yeah, it's not inconceivable that that's where we end up on the last day, is it? The Borough have beaten Norwich, Coventry have lost at Luton, and it's a draw gets Borough in.
What a league! I say it every year. I mean, here it is, the bun fight to get out of it. But
yeah,
you'd miss this league if you weren't in it, wouldn't you? It's bonkers and brilliant, and
It was all the tweets last night. Congratulations to Leeds for winning the 2026 to 2027 championship after you've got up, come back down, win it again. But it's exciting. I'll give it that. But Borough just have to beat Norwich, don't they? Simple as. We've had plenty of must-win games in the last few weeks and months, but this is absolutely cutting. Even Michael Carrick might tell you on Thursday that this is must win.
We'll see. Well, we'll be at Michael Carrick's press conference on Thursday, looking ahead to that game, and then obviously we'll be at. It still feels way away because we are all over with the days, but we'll be at Norwich, the Riverside, on Saturday, obviously for that crunch must-win game against Jack Wilshere's
Norwich. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't, then just tap the button below the screen. If you're listening on your podcast platforms, and rate and review there as well. And as we say, do get in touch if there's anything you want us to discuss, especially when it gets to the end of the season. And we'll have a bit more of an open forum then when we're not just bouncing between games, and we can discuss and get stuck into matters a bit more. Well, I say we're not between games. Maybe we will be between games. Maybe we'll be between playoff first and second legs in the semi-finals. We'll see. It all depends what happens this weekend. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the game this weekend if you're there. And we'll be back next week with another You Are My Borough. Take care.